Thank you, gentlemen, both so much for taking some time out from Marvel Rivals to actually get some work done.
It's another obsession that you start connecting with people.
It's appreciated that you guys took the time.
Yeah, well, I don't want to de-rank, so.
Oh, okay. All right, well, let's get into it then, yeah? Welcome to Princess and Scoundrel, where we take you along our scrabbly ever after from Fantasyland to Tatooine and everything in between. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Steven.
And this episode is, I feel like it's something we've been talking about nonstop for years, but nonstop, especially over this last week since we just are off of the last Mosh Isley and going to MegaCon and hanging out with so many of our friends and community that we've found over the last couple of years. And so we thought we should invite somebody in that is in the Roosevelt's Insiders. And if you don't know what that is, we'll get there. But it is our good friend, Will Lawler. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
You're part of the Roosevelt's Insiders. And I don't know that I don't know the first time that we met you. I remember the first time I remember meeting you, which was in Epcot, I think back in the beginning of September of last year. And right. You and Stephen both had on Roosevelt shirts. And I think we were hanging out with more people with Roosevelt shirts. You were hanging out with people wearing Roosevelt shirts. And we were all like, hey, group picture. And then 2 weeks later, we saw you at Steve's Celebration of Life in Hoboken. And it was like, oh, hey. And it just has become this wonderful thing where we don't know if we're going to see each other, but we just show up to these events. And it's like, our friends are here. This is amazing. We may have met before then. I don't.
Probably
do you remember
back
anything?
At New York, maybe back at New York City Mosh back in 23. Like
possibly
briefly, as that was just pure chaos in the best possible way.
It was pure chaos, absolutely.
But I think that's the crazy thing is, we came into the Roosevelt's family kind of working with them through Mosh and the podcast, and again we kind of were introduced to the Insiders, and it, for me, again, I always tout that I'm kind of this introvert, and it's very daunting because you see like this group of people that are almost like a family.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, everybody knows everybody, and they're all chatting with each other, and when they go to the whatever the con is, like they're all hanging out with each other. So it's very daunting, but slowly, like there was just kind of this welcoming, just because I was wearing a shirt, people were like, "Oh, hey, nice shirt," and that's kind of this inside thing with the community. Like if you know, so you kind of give the nice shirt, and they'll reciprocate the nice shirt to you because again, it feels good, but it also is just this inside thing,
right?
But yeah, just like being able to like start connecting with other people, you start learning. Again, we've met Will, and we start finding out that we have more common interests, and so I think that's the kind of the cool thing about the Insiders group. Yeah. But how did you become part of the Insiders, or how did you find out about them? And
well, also what is the Roosevelt's Insiders? Like maybe set the groundwork of what that is, and then how you got involved.
So Roosevelt Insiders is a Facebook community that's almost 38,000 strong right now on Facebook, which is impressive in and of itself.
Huge,
but it's just a community of people that really like loud shirts. But I figured tonight, Star Wars podcast. Let's go Summer Snips. It's bright, it's fun, makes sense, and it's Roosevelt's. But it's a community that I fell into back in November of 22. So I had first come across the brand back at New York Comic Con in that September. And I was like, oh, these really cool shirts. I was with a buddy of mine. I dragged him into it too. I'm like, oh, they're really comfortable. They fit well. They're fun designs. And I myself am not a very loud person. So I figure if I wear loud shirts, it's like an expression of myself in a way. But that's when it all started. And I wound up meeting some of my closest friends, some of my best friends, people to go to the parks with, people to go to cons with, just people to have a really good time with. From that one interaction at a booth at Comic-Con 2.5 years ago now.
Isn't that wild? So
it's insane.
When we first were introduced to it, so we had seen their their ads and everything on Instagram, I think maybe mid 2022. It was after we had held the first mosh, and then a few of us were going to D23, which I think was actually one of the very first conventions that they were at. Like, they had not been at conventions for very long.
Right.
And they had done a party for Nate, Paging Mr. Morrow,
Right.
and invited us out. And we were just talking, and they wanted to work with our podcasts specifically. They're just like, they just really love Mosh, but they really actually work with like our podcasts. But at the time, they're like, yeah, we've got this insiders group on Facebook, and it's like almost 20,000. And so for it to have doubled in just a couple of years is incredible. Like, it just shows the strength of how much people love the brand and what it means. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a clothing company, but I think what they've done so well is they have expanded beyond that to show that things like this, like showing your like literally wearing your fandom on your sleeves, can help bring you together with other people.
I think the hard thing is, you know, as you get older, it's you're less open to just kind of like, oh, let's be friends, let's hang out, let's have a beer type of thing.
Yeah.
And with this group, it kind of has been that way. Like, we've been able to go and hang out with people, and again, we've gone to some of the events, and I may have caught half the names, but I've seen the person before. But you know, we've had a good time, had a drink, and had some good laughs. So I think that's the cool thing, is like, you don't have to be like, I'm able to feel more comfortable. You know, again, I'm going from my perspective, like more comfortable, you know, hanging out with new people.
Right. But that's even just like in person, because the actual group on Facebook, I mean, every time I log into that group and I'm like, oh, let me see what's going on in here, there's like 20-30 posts a day from different people just posting like what it is that they have going on in their lives that day and why they felt compelled to wear that shirt. I think there's like different themes to the week, where there's like the Wednesday whales, right?
Wednesday whales, Tiki Tuesday, Floral Friday.
And these are just things you guys have made up along the way.
They're
right?
hashtags that I learned when I joined the group 2 years ago. You know, we tried to do it. I started and tried to do something different for spooky season. So like the month of October, we did like different hashtags for different shirts, just because you kind of want to keep it to some kind of a theme. But other people do. Everybody does their own thing, and that's the beauty of that community. Is everybody comes together. Everybody loves the shirts. Everybody supports each other. And that's in a world today where you can't get that anywhere. To get it in a Facebook group where 90% of them are toxic, it's something you don't expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you see people in there that are like, I'm proposing to my girlfriend today, and this is the shirt that I decided to wear. Or I'm adopting my stepson officially, and this is the shirt that I want to wear. And so it's these big, like, it goes from all the way from these big life moments that people choose to wear this shirt, all the way down to like, it's Floral Friday, so I'm wearing like my favorite floral shirt. Or like for us, we're like, okay, we're going on a trip, and what can we wear that's like kind of like, sometimes I love a matching moment, but I know it gets on your nerves sometimes. So I'm like, what can we wear that's like similar but not too similar, so we just look nice and coordinated.
Yeah.
But it was, oh my gosh, okay, we'll get to Mosh a little bit later on, but like there was a sea of Technicolor troopers, like tuxedos, and I was just
seems
like
it became like the unofficial
like Mosh. I was like vibrating. I was like, oh my god, this is my dream. So many people wearing the tuxedos.
There's a picture somewhere. There's probably 15 to 18 people all wearing the shirt.
That's crazy.
It makes me so happy. But okay, before we get into Mosh, so Roosevelt's, like I mentioned, I think when we went to D23, which is back in 2022, that was like one of their very, very first cons they had ever done, and now they go to, it's like 1 or 2 a month. It feels like they're constantly at conventions, which I think is great, because a lot of the shirts are focused around different fandoms and IPs, but they also still have a lot of shirts that are just like non-IP related, and it's their own designs, which are really great. But it makes sense for them to be at these comic conventions, because you have Star Wars, you have Disney, you have anime, you have Nickelodeon, you have, Universal, you have all of these different things. And so why not go to a convention and pick up like a really cool shirt that yes, you can get online, but like it's a great one to wear, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing though, for me, we'd been going to our local comic convention for years, and never once were we like, let's go meet up with friends at a convention. Like it wasn't a thing that we did. But now, as we've been getting involved more with Roosevelt and the podcast and just within these communities, like especially Star Wars, it's like, who's going to Celebration? Who's going to MegaCon? And it's just become this place where people can meet up. And it's wonderful that it's made that shift. And I don't know, had you been going to conventions before becoming an insider?
So the one convention I would always go to was New York Comic Con. I live in New Jersey, so that's my convention. That's my home convention.
It's your local, yeah.
Yeah. I had never heard of MegaCon. I had never heard of any of these other ones where I was like, oh, I need to go there. Made a collective effort to meet up with friends in 24 to go to MegaCon and had a blast. And at that point, it was my second mosh as well. So it was even better. And I convinced all my friends to go have a great time. So now it's a yearly tradition to go to MegaCon.
Nice.
There's other conventions we're working on as a collective to try and go to, but those are all future problems.
But I think the other thing too is like kind of what you're piggyback off of what you were saying, where it was like that sentiment of going to a con and you were just kind of going to see what was there.
Yeah.
Now we're actually going to go see, people.
Yeah.
So like there's that more incentive to go, but there's the other incentive is like Roosevelt's tends to have like these super exclusive ones.
Oh yeah.
Like especially MegaCon weekend, there was like a ton.
Do you know how many exclusives there were for MegaCon weekend?
There wound up being 6, including the meetup shirt from Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, there was like a ton. Like and again, the week after you start seeing everybody like, here's this one, here's the florals, all the different ones. So you're like, dang man, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you can buy the stuff online, but not the con exclusives, and they do a really good job of the genius marketing over there. But yeah, like we had never gone to a convention to like meet up with friends, and like with you, like I'd heard of MegaCon, but we're not. Well, we weren't big cosplayers, and like a lot of people that go travel for these conventions, they either have very specific things that they want to get that are exclusive, or they want to go and they want to dress up and they're cosplayers, and so there's kind of like marketing for them and getting to play and get photographed, whatever. We used to, when we would go do a con, we were very deliberate about it. We would walk in. What would we do? We would walk into the show floor and you would pick a side and we would go up and down like every aisle, because that's what we thought we were there for conventions for, was to see all of the stuff on the show floor. We never really were big on like panels or anything like that, but it was like, let's see everything there is. And I don't know. We walked 2 aisles maybe at MegaCon. And we saw like all of our friends and like the booths that they were in. And then we're like, all right, let's go.
Well, because you end up just like hanging out there.
Yeah.
I think that's where like we kind of start learning like, no, okay, that's why you're going to be there 2 or 3 days, because you're hanging around. Like you're, talking to people and hanging out and then kind of going to the next thing. You're like, all right, it's time to eat. Let's go. And
yeah.
So you're not just like beelining it through every aisle to, all right, let me make sure I see everything, buy whatever I need to buy and get out.
I mean, a con is a con. It's this, you're going to see the comics, you're going to see the collectibles, you're going to see the people with handmade goods, but then you're going to see your friends that you see at every convention, your artist friends that just so happen to be there at a booth that have anything and everything that could add to your collector's dream at that point.
Here's my one rub with conventions though, and like meeting up with your friends, is it's not chill vibes at a convention. There are no chill vibes to be had at a convention. Nope. The show floor is always packed. There's always like it's like schools of fish. And everybody's just like, but everybody's swimming against each other. Nobody's going in like any one direction. And so to try to meet up with people, you have to find like pockets of space elsewhere, or you have to make plans to go like, hey, let's go have dinner after the convention closes, or let's all go do this one thing over here. And I think that's something that Roosevelt's does organize pretty well too, is like we went and saw Roosevelt's, I think, at the con the day after we had initially met with them at the, I mean, imagine like walking to a bar you've never been to for like a Paging Mr. Morrow meetup when like you vaguely know Nate. You don't know him at all. Like you've just seen his videos and then you're like here to meet like all of these people. And I'm like, I don't know any of these people. But for the people that knew each other there, it was great. And you could tell everybody was having a good time. And I remember it was me and Dano and we were just kind of sitting there like, these people seem really cool, but we don't know any of them. And I remember Dano and I being like, you go start talking to people. I'm like, no, you go be the one to start. Like, you go make that conversation.
But again, it's weird. It's when you get older, you can't just like, hey, you want to play with my toy, and then start playing in the dirt.
No, it's not like that.
So you got to figure out like, okay, what's my hand? Like, okay, that person likes. I see the shirt. He likes Disney. He likes Figment. Let me go talk to him about Figment.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a real good indicator of like, okay, like we have something in common.
Right. Because like I know both of y'all have tattoos. I'm not a tattoo person. I'm a Libra. I do not make any decisions well or easily. I change my mind a lot. But when you wear a Roosevelt shirt and you wear something that shows a little piece of who you are, it's so easy to then say like, hey, this is my fandom. Do you also like this fandom? It's kind of like these are the toys I play with.
Yeah.
It's a calling card.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's beautiful. But that's where I think Roosevelt's does a good job, is they do these events outside of the convention as well. It's exhausting. Go to a convention where Roosevelt's is there and with a bunch of insiders, and like you won't sleep.
There was not a lot of sleep last weekend, that's for sure.
No, you will not sleep. You won't rest, but you will absolutely have the best time, because we didn't even do half of the things that you guys were doing. Y'all were meeting up at like Disney Springs. You were meeting up in the parks.
We were on another level last week. That's for sure.
Because we ran into you guys the day after Mosh at Epcot. And so there was just a bunch of people, but it was wonderful too, because it wasn't like everybody was rolling together necessarily. Right. It was people were just kind of like, we'll catch up with you. We'll break apart. But you could tell who the insiders were, because everybody was like, there was like at least three or four at a time, like in Roosevelt's shirts walking around. So one of the things that we've started doing is Mosh Isley, which is an event that we throw for like the larger comic conventions. And when we first started throwing it, it wasn't meant to be this way for people to find their people necessarily. It was initially just like a one-off, like, hey, we're all going to be at Celebration. We all had plans to meet up with our friends, our Star Wars friends and community. And then we're like, let's just throw a party. That way we have one specific place where we can all meet up. And then it evolved into this thing where it's like, okay, now we go to these big conventions and these big places and have these events. And it kind of goes hand in hand in a lot of cases where Roosevelt's is doing a convention or there's some kind of big event going on. But it's transformed into this very similar thing where people feel like they can go and they can, even if they don't know anybody, they know. And I saw this a lot in like the Roosevelt's insiders group after the fact, where it was like, we can go to Mosh and like, I may not know anybody there, but I know that I'll know
my insider people.
My people will be there. And I think that's a beautiful thing too. And it's nothing, trust me, it was by no means calculated in any way, but it's incredible that this is now becoming a thing where people do feel like they can go, and even if you don't know anybody, like just go hang out and have a good time, and then by the end of the night you have probably 20 new friends at a minimum.
On the light side, yeah.
Right. So it's just beautiful. I'm very grateful to be a part of that, because, and I will say this. So we just had a Mosh Isley for MegaCon weekend. And we were talking about it like afterwards, because we had done MegaCon and hung out with a bunch of people in the Roosevelt's booth there. And then we had Mosh, and then we did Epcot, and we kind of drank around the world. I don't know if we were successful or.
I think we were still recovering from the night before.
Right. But I don't know if you really do drink all the way around the world. Would you call that a success? Like you're done for the day.
I've done it. It's not easy.
I've never like officially done it. I have 3 drinks and I'm done.
Yeah.
But afterwards and after the weekend, we were coming back home. Like Steven and I looked at each other and we were like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like we're we're actual like insiders now, because the insiders felt like this just really cool group of people that they all love each other, and it feels like everybody knows each other. And we've mentioned it, it's hard to feel like you can kind of get into that group and be a part of it. And just being able to like see people in Epcot the next day or at Mosh, and they're like, somebody's calling your name and you're like, oh my god, you're an insider, you know me, I know you, like this is great. So that was a wonderful feeling. So I feel we've just been like smiling all week.
Yeah.
We're like, oh
Well, but I think it's not even a thing of like it being like, oh, it's a super secret club type of thing.
No.
It's more of it's just this. It's like that family that was there, and it's more from my or our timidness of like, kicking in the door, like, hey, like I'm here type of thing. We're like, no,
Yeah.
like let's just kind of be here, exist, and people start kind of accepting us, like, oh, hey, look, I've seen you here, like,
we're awkward.
yeah, like let me introduce myself, and I think that's the thing is not a thing of like that feeling of like, oh man, like I can't get accepted, because like that's not the case.
No.
It's more of like how comfortable you are getting into that, and how loud you are type of thing. Because again, there's people that I've seen that are like really quiet, and that I didn't even know they were insiders until like I saw them online. But I would talk to them, say, give them a nice shirt type of thing at the parks, but I wouldn't know who they were until it was like I saw them posts about it on the Facebook group. So it was just like, it's one of those like, not everybody's loud and kind of like, oh, let me go do this and that. They're just more like, oh, I'm just here, I just enjoy the brand type of thing.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as you see somebody in a shirt, 90% of the time, they're going to be super welcoming. They're going to be friendly. You'll get the nice shirt back. The ones that always hurt are the ones that you go, oh, hey, nice shirt. You get the, yeah, my wife bought it for me. I don't know what you're talking about, which happens a lot at Epcot, apparently.
Yeah, I did that once at a birthday party, and like one of the little kids, like it was the tiniest Roosevelt shirt I've ever seen. It was adorable. One of the little kids had a Roosevelt shirt on. I was like, oh my god, like the dad must be an insider. And so I said something, and he was like, yeah, my wife found me like a cute shirt online. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I tried. I was like, I don't know anybody at this party. I was like, I'm trying to find an in.
Always fine.
Yeah, but I think that speaks to something larger that goes beyond like Mosh Isley or Comic Cons or Roosevelt's even, which is just finding your community later in life, because oh my gosh, it is so hard. And I know like for me specifically, I'm a fairly outgoing. I think people think
No, you're outgoing.
I don't know. I do love like
Look, I'm looking at Will. Like,
Yeah.
if you would see both of us on all everything that we do, it's usually Sarah that you're
You're
gonna
his emotional support extrovert.
yeah. Like it's that shield that I
Yeah.
hear like talk to.
when we're in public. But like if there's a choice, like if we're at home and there's a choice to like go do something or be at home, I want to be at home. I love a good like couch rotting
Well,
session.
I think that's different though.
But
don't know.
I think it changed. We used to go out a lot more pre-pandemic, and I think that's been the big shift for me. Is like we went through a time where a lot of people are isolated from doing the things that would normally connect you with people, and so we all had to pivot and find other ways to connect with each other. And so the internet was what we reached out to. And like you said, Facebook groups, majority of them are pretty toxic. So trying to find your people online, sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. And I think that's been one of the beautiful things, at least for me, is I did like these weird things, but I was never in these positions where I was with other people that liked Star Wars to like a grand scale, or really liked the Disney parks. You go to Disney and you're surrounded by tens of thousands of people, but you can't just like walk up to somebody and be like, we both like this place, do you want to be friends? Like you can't do that. And so trying to find where you belong and the people that get what you get, it's tough. And it's not, even for me, you guys say I'm an extrovert. Like even for me, I'm just like, I want to be your friend, but like I don't know how to start this conversation, right? And so that's where I think we've struggled, and like a lot of people struggle. It's just like, how is it that you find your community?
For the longest time, I was always the quiet person. I was the odd man. I was a band nerd. I was a math geek in high school. It was great. And I just kind of kept to myself, and I had a really small bubble. Honestly, it's because of the shirts back in like 2022. I started wearing loud shirts, and I started finding people and making new friends. Four of my best friends I've made through the group. We have our own podcast that we do as well. So it's like, you think back a year ago when we all met, I wouldn't think I'd be here today. I wouldn't think of doing what I'm doing now. So I found my community. I found my annual pass holders. It's a good group.
So, okay, you talked about the loud shirts. Had you always been someone that tried to like be more like that wore colorful clothes, or did you always kind of wear the dark clothes and you know what, let me just kind of stay quiet, and then this is what invigorate, or like just like, oh, you know what, it's time to do that, or like what was that thing that kind of like, you know what, this is how I want to portray myself?
It used to be a lot of like band t-shirts, a lot of t-shirts outside of work. At work, I was a polo and jeans guy. I like to play golf. I wear really loud golf shirts on the golf course because that's acceptable there as well. And that's where it kind of started. And then I saw the Roosevelt's brand because targeted marketing is fantastic.
Yeah.
Works wonders. And it just kind of started from there. It started with one shirt, and and then there's, a Star Wars holiday release 2 weeks later after the first convention. Let me buy that entire collection. Oh, there's a Nightmare Before Christmas collection. Let me buy that collection. And it just goes and goes and goes.
So it started as like being a little bit loud, then to cater to your addictive personality of, I got to get all of it.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
yeah. In the beginning, it was
marketing.
In the beginning, it was they released a collection. I bought every shirt. Now I'm much more selective. The closet's jammed a little bit, but now I'm a little bit more selective.
Well, I think I was asking, I don't remember who I was asking, but I was like, do we know who has like the most shirts?
There has to be.
I think I do.
Is it you?
It's not me.
Okay.
It's definitely not me. He is a fellow medium
though. Okay.
Yeah, he's out on the West Coast. He's up there. He's usually the picture that husbands show their wives when they're like, it could be worse.
Well, and I think that's the crazy thing too, is like the group. It's, I was listening to one of the episodes that it's the Dapper
Degens.
Degens.
Yep.
But I didn't realize that there's so many creative people in the group. Again, that's one of the things, like, it's so awesome. But like some of the tuxes they're not tuxes that they actually made.
Nope.
They're getting they're getting multiple shirts and then basically custom making tuxes for everything.
Who would do such a thing?
Well, but I'm just saying, like, that was before me. That wasn't like, oh, I thought of it and I made, I started doing it. But
there's other people out there that are just like you.
But like doing that, and there's like, they're making
backpacks,
like,
making sling bags, making fanny packs, making wallets out of the scraps from making shorts.
Yeah,
there's a lot of really creative people out there that are doing wonderful things.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I saw somebody that made a mini skirt out of like one of the polos. I was like, oh, that's genius. Like
I've seen mini skirts and I've seen leggings.
Oh, that would be so hard. That's a you
performance hoodies.
Yeah.
Just grab a performance hoodie, cut it up.
2 legs.
Lightning round. Well, like, I know this, I was going to kind of hold it till the end.
Oh, okay.
But I want to do it now because we're talking about it.
Okay.
It's like, one, is there an IP that hasn't been done that you want to see done?
There is. And it's Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Okay.
Do you have one?
I couldn't think, because I was like thinking, like, right now I'm big into anime.
Yeah.
But they're doing One Piece, Dragon Ball. They've done Gundam. Like, they've done the ones the stuff that I watch.
Yeah.
So I'm like, now, if anything, I'd be picking something so obscure that they're like, all right, we'll do it. And just
dun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That would be mine. I want like just a turbo granny all over print.
And then second question is there article of clothing or other thing that you would want to see them do that they haven't done?
Ooh,
Like a type of shirt or
Hmm.
I like that.
That's a little bit harder. Because I have the Kunu Flex, I have the polos, I have the performance hoodies. The hats are great.
The hats are great. I love the hats.
Oh yeah, there's 15 of them sitting somewhere. It's really bad. Don't have an addictive personality and find a brand that you really like.
I think if you're an insider, probably everybody in it has an addictive personality. I'm noticing a trend here.
A little bit.
So mine is I want a baseball shirt, like the baseball
Oh,
tees
yeah.
Oh
with the sleeves.
yeah.
Like, that's I think what I would want is like it's maybe a solid color with a print or
Well, that's kind of elusive of the ropers that they have,
A little bit, but
Little
with
bit.
the performance.
but with like
Material.
a performance material. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Steven actually made a baseball shirt with the summer snips that you're wearing on the
Yep.
sleeves, and then the
Solid.
blue, like the solid blue. It
Yeah.
looks so good.
Yeah, I just like those tees, the way I guess
That
maybe
would
the
be
way
fun.
they fit. So
Yeah, that would
I
be
want
something
skirts. I want skirts.
skirts.
Yeah.
All right, I'll put a word in.
Thanks. You know what else I want? Women's bathing suits.
different. They made them in the very beginning.
They did make them in the very beginning, but they've disappeared. And so we're going on a cruise. We're going on a Good Journey cruise, so it's like Star Wars specific in a couple weeks. And I'm Googling Star Wars bathing suits for women, and there's nothing, like literally nothing out there.
I feel like it's feast or famine all the time, like with like that kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
like there's a season where there's a ton of stuff, and you're kind of like I'll wait till next season to get
Right.
it, and then it never comes back.
Never. So like I can't find anything anywhere. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have to like put together like some kind of a bound and like get the right colors and slap some vinyl on it or something. But I'm like, it would be so easy if I could just go on a website and buy it. So I think that would be my big one. More women's wear just in general.
They can get the Disney and the Star Wars stamp of approval. I'm pretty sure they'll do anything. They'll give it a shot once.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too. Is like maybe they can't. Maybe there's like only licensed to do certain types of clothing.
Mm.
So you have like once you branch out into a new type of clothing, like it's a whole
It's a
new.
whole new acquisition process.
Right.
Probably.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Was that it for your lightning
That was
round?
my lightning round.
Oh,
questions.
okay.
Those
Yeah.
were easy in comparison
Yeah.
to what they could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not. We're not like hard hitting investigators.
No, we just
Oh,
like to have
no.
a good time over here. Favorite drink around the world? There's
Ooh,
another.
okay.
Violet sake.
Never had it.
I don't have it.
Delicious.
Is it year round or is it just for food and
I have never been there and it hasn't been there.
wine? Okay, because there's one, or maybe it's like the violet lemonade. I think
Violet
is
lemon.
the.
Yeah.
I think that's the food and wine one. What's your favorite? Oh, I already know your
It's the
favorite.
margarita. Mexico.
That's like the most basic lime margarita from.
It's so good.
Is it though?
It is. It's so easy to drink. I love it. It's cold when it's
But it's a very specific margarita. It's not inside the Mexico
No,
Pavilion.
it's
It's
like the cheap-
outside at the El
just at the
Cantina
machine.
quick service.
Oh, it's the
it's a
quick frozen.
cross,
the
but it's
frozen.
across from the margarita stand. Even it's like the quick service.
Oh,
like,
the outside
Mexican
restaurant.
place.
Yeah.
It's like as generic as it could be, but
it really is.
It's my favorite.
It's very strong.
Yeah.
It's incredibly strong. I think. Ooh, I don't know if I have a favorite for Epcot. The margarita is good. I really love the Lily margarita. I don't know if they still have it inside at La Cava. And then the peanut butter old fashioned that they had for paging Mr.
For me,
Morrow.
yeah.
That one was really good.
That one was
I really
surprisingly
loved
good.
that one. And then they had a coffee margarita in there too. So basically just like drop us off at the Mexico Pavilion, pick us up in a few hours. We'll drink around Mexico.
We just like keep going back and forth.
all three of the stops.
Jeez. All right, I've got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Out of the 4 festivals at Epcot, which one is your favorite?
I love farts mostly for the name.
Yes.
But also it's fun to go like look at all of the different art around. I think it's visually more fun than just like food and wine. And then I think Flower and Garden is my favorite after that, just because the park is so gorgeous and seeing all the topiaries and all the flowers that they put out. And then I would say food and wine. We're not big on like stopping at the like festival booths, because if it was good enough to be in the parks year round, it would be there. And then so I guess it basically follows like the calendar year,
which
and
is
then
the proper
festival of
answer.
Holidays. Yeah.
It's the proper answer.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think arts and the like it just, again, because the drinks that are there are I'm good with.
Yeah.
Like I don't, there's not like, oh yeah, when this one comes in I want to get that one.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, the food and wine, sometimes they go a little wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try them. Like, what was that last one we I'm trying to think of what pavilion was, but it had that Bloody Mary, like the clear Bloody Mary.
Oh yeah.
Like it was like a tomatoes, like I don't know, it was clear, but I was just like, I should have just got my regular drink.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say arts. I'm trying to not say farts.
No, it's
said
farts.
it.
It's
You
farts.
said it. It's farts.
Farts and flower garden. So
Yeah.
And then-
Flower and Garden starts in like 2.5 weeks.
yeah,
It's like right after
we're there.
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be there at all for Flower and Garden this year.
I think I'll be there the first weekend.
Oh, have fun for us.
I will.
But I love this. Look, so we started the conversation talking about shirts and a little bit of Star Wars. But now we're just like, all right, let's talk about very specifically the Epcot part.
Talk about
Yeah.
niche
Like, what-
Epcot things.
Niche Epcot things.
But again, the other,
What's
like,
your
we
favorite row in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Row 9. Always row
Yes.
There
9.
you go.
Top answer. It has to be.
But no, again, it's just kind of that you kind of start finding your people. And again, we've talked about it. We've talked about it like at nausea on the podcast. It's like, you know, we found our like Star Cruiser people, and it kind of opened us to that group. You know, finding our Star Wars people that can relate, and we could have conversations, and we could have criticisms, but also like just appreciate what we have. And like with Will, like we have this intersection of insiders, but through that I found like a gaming buddy that we've started to play games with. And
Yeah,
then,
he messaged me and he's like, "What's his main?" I'm like, "I don't go ask him. I don't know."
but it's just like it feels so good because you kind of just like start having these like small connections. And then I've been playing with your buddies, and
Yeah.
again, I don't know them by name, I just know them by their
Gamer tag.
Yeah. So it's like you
I
just
love
start knowing
that.
them that way, and then I'm like, okay, you know, I'm probably gonna end up meeting them one day. So like, let me like,
Don't say anything too dorky.
but you just like find them through that, and then again, it's just like these small little pockets of finding interest with people. Like it's just super cool. And
It's
again, as an older person, it doesn't usually happen that way, and it makes it very difficult. But somehow we've managed to do it through all
Somehow.
these. Yeah. So
Somehow
Friendships have returned.
Palpatine returned.
No, it's beautiful. I mean, even for me, like I think we really started out in this space because of Star Cruiser, and then we all know how that ended, but that it branched out. And then because of people that we met on Star Cruiser, now we do this like spooky explorers group at Disney as well, where it's like this intersection of people that like spooky things and going to Disney World. And it has nothing to do with Star Wars or Star Cruiser, but now because of that, other things are happening and other things. And so it's terrifying. It is so terrifying to be vulnerable and like put yourself out there and be like, here's all the weird things I like. Anybody, and like it may be crickets for a while, but once you start finding your people, like amazing things come from that. Like you were saying, you couldn't have imagined your life being what it was a year ago.
God no, it's it's insane. Just from this past weekend, between the convention, between Mosh, the Roosevelt's meetup, from our takeover Epcot, where you guys saw 40 people rolling through in shirts, we're like, that wouldn't be me. I used to travel by myself everywhere and just go and do what I wanted to do. And now
I
it's
bet
like
you
you
rode
travel
so
as a
many
deep-
more rides too. Like we never ride rides anymore because we're always just like hanging out with friends.
So it all started Thursday. We did all 4 parks and the convention on Thursday.
Oh right, I remember that.
Golly.
Y'all like took a midday break to come to the convention,
Yeah,
and then
pretty
went
much.
back out to Magic Kingdom. Yeah.
Yeah, we did Animal Kingdom, then Hollywood, then Epcot, then the convention, and then shut down Magic Kingdom, and then shut down Jelly Rolls at the boardwalk.
Oof,
Golly.
that's a long day.
Oh, it was a great day. I met so many people that day. It was awesome.
That's amazing, but that's a long day.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, it makes me so happy to hear though. Like,
Yeah.
it's adulting is hard, like as it is, and then
Adulting's
like
not
being
easy.
able to find but being able to find people that you can like just lament to or celebrate with or just like connect with in another way where it's like, hey, I've had a long day, let's hop on and play Rivals, let's get to Plat 2. Is that a thing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
is.
that is.
But on
Okay.
that's
Yes.
like a perfect segue, Sarah.
Oh yes.
Is like, Will, we kind of mentioned it. I had mentioned the title of it, but you and other insiders have a podcast.
Yes.
You want to kind of like talk about that?
Yeah,
kind of?
plug away.
All right, I'll plug. So it's myself, Josh Albrecht, Ross Kierlock, Martin Shireen, and Dan Delaney, all of which you guys met this past weekend.
Yep.
We all officially met at MegaCon last year was when I met Dan Delaney. Everybody else I kind of met from November of 23 up until February of 24. We talk about Roosevelt's. We talk about the fact that we're all pass holders. We're all nerds. We all do crazy things. We all like to go to Disney together, take over conventions together. It's a fun time. It's something we started back in August, I think. We're 23 or 24 episodes in at this point. Anywhere from like a half hour to 45, 50 minutes, can be found on YouTube. But yeah, it's 5 guys sitting in a bar and it's a conversation you overhear. That's the best way to describe it.
And we will put the link to your podcast in
Appreciate
the
it.
description. Yeah, absolutely. We started after you and I had talked. I took like an hour of your time in Epcot. Like we saw you guys,
Oh,
and I was
that's
like,
fine.
let's just join hands with me and let's go walk around and talk.
We're just gonna go sit at the Morocco Pavilion and decompress for
And
20 minutes.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I loved it.
Yeah.
But sorry, I took like an hour of your time.
Please, never apologize.
But okay, but on that too is like, because you're chatting about it goes again. It that's the incredible thing. It's like you start here and then you just kind of like tangent onto other things, and I think that's kind of like the couple episodes that I watched of you guys, and which is I think it's chaotic when it's you and me sometimes, and then we add a third person. Or like when when everybody's on there,
Oh,
I'm
my
like, oh my
gosh.
gosh. But you guys are like 5 all the time.
Yep.
And it's just like, just sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like so like not the conversation part, but just more of like the editing part. I'm like, oh my gosh, that'd probably be so stressful.
Here's the fun part. There's this much editing. It's
Yeah,
a
just let it
little
roll.
bit.
Just go.
It's a little bit in the beginning and a little bit at the end for audio and the intro, and that's it.
That's nice.
Let it roll.
That's so nice.
We
See,
host
need
on
to-
we host
Well,
on
that's why
StreamYard, and that's
Just
it.
let it go.
You just let it happen. It happens. I get the okay, cool. It's uploaded to YouTube. Do the little Facebook push, and it's off into the ether, and whatever happens happens.
Yeah, that's why we our lives. That's kind of what we
When they're live, we can't do anything.
Yeah, you can't do
about 'em.
anything. So it's just
Right, then those get chaotic. But yeah.
Again, but that's part of the fun of it, though. Too is you get like-minded individuals. You're gonna tangent, or as I call it, you're gonna squirrel down a random pathway.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But some of the best
It's,
conversation comes from that.
Yeah, that's what I think that's where it kind of sparks those ideas of like, oh, what about this? And you just kind of go with it.
Yeah. No, I like it. We've been trying to be a little more loose with our podcast because before we had like very not strict, but we would like keep it pretty tight to what we want to talk about. And you can't really like get down into the weeds and really get your opinions and your thoughts out if you're like, okay, we have 2 minutes to talk about this, 2 minutes to talk about that. So having something that's a lot more like free flowing, like just talking to you about whatever, wherever the wind blows is.
But I think that's what it
refreshing.
was because before we were trying to get this like YouTube video,
Yeah.
kind of keep it more edible. But sometimes conversations, they take a while. Like, you kind of getting comfortable, kind of getting in the groove of things. So you have to like draw it out. And I think that's what we're trying to do more is like, you know what, let's just let it marinate for a little bit. And
Oh, marination.
yeah.
Well, on that weird note, I think we should wrap up.
This has gone far too long.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about
Yeah.
marinating conversations. I think we found a good spot.
Yeah.
But Will, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. We will put a link to the Dapper Degens in the description of this episode. Please, you guys post weekly, so go go hang out over there too, because it's fun times when you
Yeah.
find people that like the same things you like you just want more of it. And so it's just like you watching Marvel Rivals YouTubers all the time, even when you're
Oh yeah,
not playing.
which is
Yeah.
probably.
I gotta get
It's
tips.
still early on the East Coast, so I'll probably be
Oh
hopping
my
on that
God.
soon.
I'll see. Yeah,
Okay, well, before you guys go rush off to your PCs, and your mains and your healers, and I don't know any of the words.
Any
I know
last
you're a
words,
healer.
Will?
Yeah, any last words?
Um,
Like a threat.
I mean, just be yourself. You'll find your people. You'll find the people that want to hang out and surround themselves with you and what you enjoy doing. It's in today's day and age, just be yourself more than anything else. And I know that's kind of a deep hit, but it's the truth.
It is the truth.
Sometimes it needs to be said.
You.
Just to kind of.
Last words.
I'll see you next Insiders group.
Oh, okay.
Insider event.
I thought you were gonna like wrap up
Oh.
like something very
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
philosophical. Like,
No,
well,
no, and I have nothing.
I'll say this: if you don't open yourself up and be vulnerable to finding people that are like you, you'll never find them. And if you do, and you fail and you don't find anybody, at least you tried,
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always that.
right? So it's better to just be your weird little self on the internet and see what happens. Look what could happen.
Yeah, look what could happen.
Don't be like us. Just kidding. All right. Some housekeeping before we officially wrap up. We do have not one, but two more Mosh Isleys on the books. We are going to be celebrating May the 4th, like the high holy Star Wars holiday in Las Vegas at House of Blues. I interned at my local House of Blues in college some years ago, not that long ago. But to be able to like put on an event at a House of Blues, like I think I was on the verge of tears for like a week when
It's super cool.
when we were like working through all of that. So that's going to be really fun. And then we will be back at San Diego Comic-Con at the end of July, back at Music Box, which is a fantastic venue as well. So we're just like, it's just like wonderful things upon wonderful things happening this year. And I'm just so excited because it just means getting to hang out more and more with our people like you. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you are an insider, answer your own of the lightning round questions in the comments. Let us know. Favorite drink, favorite row, favorite IP, favorite article of clothing. What else did we touch on? Farts.
If not,
yes or no?
if the shirt or if the clothing had the new clothing, whatever.
Yeah. Articles of clothing. So thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Until next time.